Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Taylor Rockwell, and it's time to talk about, currently, my favorite league to watch, and I do not mean that ironically. It's Major League Soccer. This weekend, we saw outright beatdowns, last-gasp goals, Atlanta United actually looking like a competent attacking team, the Union continuing to look anything but, the onset of what I'm calling this season affective disorder for the entire state of Ohio, and so much more. Here with me to make sense of it all, plus try to sort through the wake of Oscar Pareja's sacking in Orlando, are Phoenix Rising's greatest color commentator of at least the last couple years. It's Joe Lowry. Hello, Joe.
One of one, baby. Let's go. I like to keep the pools that I'm in small so that it's easy to sort of float to the top. I actually can't float. There's a fun fact. It's not even that fun of a fact. It's kind of dull. Never figured it out, you know? I think it's fake. I think everybody else has balloons somehow that they've inhaled. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me.
Joe's pool is a kiddie pool, and he takes up all the space because he's the best. Did you do a Phoenix game this weekend?
Yes, yeah. Phoenix and Orange County drew 1-1. Phoenix had a player send off right before halftime. Then Orange County had a player send off in the second half, and only then did Phoenix Rising concede once the game had been back to 10, which I thought was very generous of them, frankly, like very chivalrous and charitable, which I think is going to set out the stall for the rest of the season when they just sweep up everybody.
And Joe, the most important thing, talk to me about the green room. I'm assuming they removed the certain M&Ms you wanted removed per your writer, but what were the other things on offer for you?
Hey, that meal voucher ticket is working wonders for me. Parking voucher, really good parking spot. Meal voucher, I don't have anything to complain about, man. Other than where we do shoot our open is like on a little terrace, and it's incredibly windy. And for folks watching on YouTube, my hair is like fairly long, I would say, for your average Joe. And the hair is tough to tame. So I'm working on getting hair and makeup kind of on that, but first we got to get hair and makeup, you know.
We're working on it. We'll get there. That comes next. Graham's honing his makeup skills for when we're all together in Los Angeles. For now, of course, with us as well, rounding out the crew, a man who gets results at least as often as Phil Neville. It's Jeff Reuter. Hi, Jeff.
My hit rate on my pieces has never been seen more glowingly. Thank you.
I was wondering how Jeff would receive that loving introduction. Jeff wrote a good piece about many things, including Phil Neville and his work of sort in Portland. Not a great weekend for him, Mr. Reuter.
No, it wasn't, but a very good weekend for casual viewers of Major League Soccer. Like, here's what I'll pitch to you about Houston and Portland, which was by far my favorite game of the weekend, if I will. It might not have been the best soccer. I think that this maybe isn't the game that you show your Euro snob friend who's just like, they don't play credible soccer in Major League Soccer, and you're like, no, like, here's your game. But if you want to revisit just kind of the essence of 2010's Major League Soccer, I think that the essence of 2010's Major League Soccer is alive and well in Houston v. Portland. And you can put a pin in what that implies about Ned Grabavoy and Pat Onstad's works with the squads, and we can get into that another day. But in this game here, Portland tried to adjust. They'd come in with two really difficult defeats. Most recently, a rivalry game where they were, shown mercy by Thomas Muller and wanted to prove a point. And so what you see is a little bit more condensing in certain areas of the field and trying to fortify the midfield a little bit more and really focus on how you execute simple, kind of consistent, dependable patterns of play. And it looked like it was really coming through in the first half to a degree. Portland picks up a penalty kick. Clegs off, or it gets saved, however, immediately is buried, the follow-up. So they're up 1-0 at halftime. It looked pretty deserved. The difference is Ben Olsen, who, by the way, is rocking like a fantastic sort of like 70s detective at poolside waiting for the next assignment with the Henley and the chain and the beard. Like, it's a great look. Gentlemen listening to this, if you have ever seen a look and thought, should I go for it? Ben Olsen is validating your instincts, and you should go for it.
Look. It's just good. Try. And Jeff's description was incredibly apt. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like, what is it? The other guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, like just kind of like that vibe. Or the Nice Guys, one or the other. I always mix that up with the Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell one. Some guys, whatever. Name some guys. I'll actually talk about some guys. In the second half, what you see with Houston. Right, like it's one or the other. They came out at like the same time, and they're so different. I do too. Portland looked confused in the second half, and that's maybe also a concern because Ben Olsen makes the change, takes off Ezequiel Ponce. Not a great sign again about using a DP slot on him. Brings in Ache to fortify the midfield, and Portland suddenly looks a lot more confused about how to keep a foothold in this game. And, ultimately it breaks down in the 15th minute of second half stoppage time with a Mateus Bogus kind of break just up the seam, great pass from Jack McGlynn, but is able to run pretty much unobstructed through Portland's entire defensive shape. And Joe, I just like it. You know, when you walk into the stadium renderings are maybe a good example of this, where you will see like, okay, here's a tactical diagram, but here is where people who are just kind of casually like acknowledging soccer will put players on a field, it's so spread out and it doesn't look coherent. That's kind of how Portland was playing in the second half, especially down the stretch when they were up a man in stoppage time. I don't know how much you caught of this one, but I would love your thoughts on Portland's attempt to see out a result.
Yeah, I watched this whole thing, all 8,000 minutes of it, because that goal came in the 105th minute in the second half. I was surprised at how Phil Neville set his team up, though I didn't think, as a general rule, they played especially poorly in this game. In the first half, you talked about it already, some of the patterns of this game. It was very much a single pivot in a 4-3-3 with DaCosta and the new winger that they've signed, Aravena. He was playing as the other free 8, sort of ahead of Diego Chara as the number 6. That is a move by Phil Neville made out of necessity, because he doesn't have Cole Bassett in this team. He doesn't have Caicedo that they brought in from Pumas just yet available to play. And so you end up with a midfield that is quite porous. And it did look that way at times. But still, I think some of the pieces showed fairly well for Portland. It's just absolutely maddening that they can't manage to see out a game. My feelings on this team have not changed. My feelings really on the Dynamo, frankly, haven't changed either, which is to say I think both of these teams are very much a work in progress. And I think that pin that you mentioned, Jeff, is probably where my brain goes. But I have personally spent enough time kind of tossing some shade at Houston and Portland, really since the offseason started until now. This game, though, was sweet, sweet chaos right into my veins, and I did enjoy it very much.
Update on Ben Olsen Vibe Watch. I was
thanks.
looking at his post-match presser and thinking, like, is he trying to be some sort of like abstract painter? And then I remembered, I believe he is an abstract painter. So yes, I think is the answer. I like the big giant beard with the slicked back hair. I'm not gonna lie, it's a good look, and that he has gone stylishly gray in certain spots. It feels very
nice.
Strategic, but I like it.
It looked a lot like he was trying to influence a future Oscar Isaac role and say, like, hey, if you're ever going to play a soccer coach, like, I'm costuming for you down the road. You're not ready at this stage of your career, but soon.
That is a phenomenal shout. A phenomenal win for Houston. Any other thoughts on this one from either of you, or should we move to Joe's favorite game of the weekend?
Real quick, some nice things about Houston. We had some questions about Guilherme in our season previews. Just kind of like journeyman Brazilian winger. He looks like he's in that Elcinho school of like, just kind of good veteran Brazilian dribbly boys who can, have the guile and maybe finally the confidence and the stability and the consistent run of games in a good training environment where they will be able to outperform what you saw past in their career. It looks like he is going to be able to be a threat coming in from the left wing. So encouraging signs on that one. And then for Portland, I mean, look, again, they've got the talent. Phil Neville right now, similar sample size, has been underperforming what he was doing in Miami when he was seen as, holding the team back from being able to make the playoffs with Gonzalo Higuain in one case and be ready for Lionel Messi ultimately towards the end as well. So some concerns there. Keep an eye on that one. And I don't know. Just, again, very, very sort of fun, only in the Western Conference, only a Major League Soccer sort of game.
I 1,000
watch the highlights.
1,000% forgot that Gonzalo Higuain played for Inter Miami. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Understandable, yeah.
Wow.
Did both Higuains play there at the same time?
Yeah, they overlapped as well. Like, that's just the whole thing. It's like...
Insanity.
Miami before Messi is like, people will not believe the rosters they pulled together. If they just joined the league late, they really won't.
Atlanta United fans might, since they're trying to pull some of that roster back together for this current season. Joe, Atlanta, scoring goals, looking good, playing fun games.
This, I think, was
felt
my
like 2019,
favorite.
man.
A little bit, yeah. Felt like 20-teens Atlanta in a fun way. This was my favorite game of the weekend. I've really enjoyed the staggering that MLS has done with their schedule this year. So this was one of the games before the real onslaught on Saturday, which was great for me because I had Rising in the evening, and so I missed a bunch of those games in the evening live. But I really, really enjoyed this game, and Atlanta impressed. Now, to get out in front of this, it's hard to know how much to make of performances against the Philadelphia Union because they are still winless so far this season, Philadelphia. I think Philly are better than their record has showed. I do not think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think that ship has probably already sailed. So it's going to be somewhere in between those two things. But either way, Atlanta have looked rough. And they looked maybe a little less rough against RSL on that loss that they had the week before. But they've still looked quite rough. And Tata Martino is finding answers. He's moving pieces around and he's getting comfortable, I think, with his personnel. And that's huge. We've seen Thomas Jakob, who came in from Necaxa. He started as their 6. He since moved to right back because their only other right back is Ronald Hernandez. Jakob gets a goal in this game, crashing the box as a runner off of Miguel Almiron cross. And it looked good. Like, Jakob looks very much like the real deal. And I don't know if that's a Tata find, probably is, or if Chris Henderson find, maybe it is. But he looks legit, and he's getting minutes, and Tata's figuring out how to use him. That's one piece of this puzzle. Another piece of this puzzle is that Miguel Almiron has been moved from the right wing, where he started this year under Tata, to the left wing, where he's much more effective because his left foot is not, he is not a dribbler, Miguel Almiron. So if you put him on the right side, he doesn't have a great right foot. If you put him on the right, the only thing he can do really is drive at defenders and cut inside and do inverted winger, Arjen Robben sort of stuff. But he's not very good at that stuff. I mean, he's better at it than a lot of people, but he's not great at it. You move him to the left side, and he's not the same, flat track speedster that he was the first time around with Atlanta, but he's still quite quick. And I think we saw that in this game, even against a pretty aggressive, physical, quick Union team. He can get out into space and play really well-weighted crosses into the box. And not the floating, hopeful crosses, but the purposeful, driven, low crosses into a runner. And we saw that. So Almiron playing on the left makes a huge difference for this team, and we're starting to see some very nice fluidity between Almiron, Baez at left wing back who can tuck inside a bit, and we saw that in Atlanta's lovely, lovely goal that they scored to open the scoring here. And then Matias Galarza, who's a new signing that they brought in.
Please.
Yeah, Paraguayan international. The vibe. I mean, we've done a lot of hair talk already, I suppose, on this show between me and Ben Olsen and now Galarza. His hair is majestic. He plays like a bat out of hell, man. Like he is completely. He's just insane to watch. He's so frenetic, but in a way that actually does seem somewhat predictable for his teammates, but not for the opposition. I don't know exactly how that works, but Galarza has been a really, really good addition, Taylor, I think, to this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Jakob goal that you referenced, Joe. Like, that is the prime example of this, where it's a series of 1-2s that are still, like, very chaotic and sort of, like, physical and, like, riding challenges and knocking people over, but he gets on the end of them. And then it's just, rather than overcomplicate things, you can see him look and think about, like, hitting a bending cross into the middle and seeing who's there. He's like, or I can just play it 5 yards ahead for Miguel Almiron to try to do things. And that's exactly what he does. And then Almiron hits that ball. I think he's trying to get to Latte Lath, but it's a little bit behind.
Right.
But Jakob is there to score. And even that was noteworthy to me, that you had numbers crashing the box for Atlanta in advantageous positions. You didn't have kind of the hesitancy. You didn't have an overcrowding in one area, leaving something else kind of exposed. It just felt like there was a good amount of flow and a good amount of attacking vibe to this team. But then there was also technical ability in there, which, we're talking about Latte Lath, a player who they spent a lot of money for. But that opening goal, it's so good, and it looks so simple, but there is a high degree of difficulty in every aspect of it, including the Almiron ball where he gets kind of like rocked after he plays that pass. But Latte Lath lets it run across him, but then takes... At first I wrote good, and then I crossed it out and wrote phenomenal first touch. Because it looks like a good first touch to just set him up to shoot, but it is the perfect amount of weight to then be able to pick his head up, see what Andre Blake, the goalkeeper, is doing, and then like put his head back down and finish and know exactly where he's putting it because he set himself up so perfectly. And it just felt like there was a confidence there to that Atlanta United attack. Moranchuk scoring as well felt like a useful component as well. So overall, a very strong result for me. And now I've hijacked your points, Joe.
No, that's helpful, Taylor, and I like hearing your thoughts a lot. I think that's spot on across the board. And on Latte Latte for a second, it had been 238 days since Emmanuel Latte Latte had scored a goal in MLS play. So he had been in this huge goal drought, a then record MLS transfer that's since been surpassed by Son. But Atlanta had been waiting for the return on this guy, and he wasn't even starting some games at the end of last season. I've said and been consistent on this, the talent is obvious. He's physically very gifted. His hold-up play is better than it's credited for because he's not the biggest guy. But his hold-up play is quite good, I think, by and large. And the timing of his off-ball movement, I think, is very, very good as well. And all of those things came together on this goal. You look at his profile, and he's a guy who should be targeting space in behind. Now, my question for Atlanta was, how would they get him into those spots? Because both Latte Latte and Almiron, I think, are better running into space and behind the back line than they are picking locks against low blocks. So how are they going to do that? It felt very un-Tata Martino, to just sit deep and go and hit on the break. We've only seen that a few times in bits and spurts for him in his MLS career. It felt much more likely that this team was going to be a possession team. So I couldn't quite square how they were going to maximize those two DPs and be a possession team. Well, I think the answer in this game anyway was that they were going to do San Diego. What San Diego do so well is that they build in their own third, they draw you forward, so then they create these pseudo transition attacks where it's not really like after a turnover. But it's the same effect where they're charging into space, but not because they've lost the ball or they've recovered it to then go, but because they've drawn you forward, effectively simulating moments where you're in possession high up the field as the opponent. And then they've broken through you. And that's what the first goal is. It's them creating basically what amounts to a transition attack, but by having the ball in the first place. And I think that is a recipe that Atlanta can continue to draw from. Look, there's still problems with this team. I'm by no means am I all the way in on them. Like, I don't even know if this team's going to make the playoffs. Lucas Hoyos looks like the worst goalkeeper in MLS, and that's crazy because Maxime Crepeau exists. He's been really bad. I don't think they have answers at the 6th spot just yet. Cooper Sanchez has been hot and cold in midfield, but to give the kid credit, he's one of the U.S. youth national teamers that we haven't really talked about a whole lot in this season so far. 17-year-old has been with the U.S. U17s. He plays a really nice ball on that goal and looks quality at times in possession and is buzzy off the ball. Maybe a little too Aronson build-esque to be a real difference maker in that phase. But yeah, man, this was fun. This is a breath of fresh air for Atlanta United fans, and I think you can see a blueprint actually starting to unfurl on the table as Tata Martino plans whatever heist he's got cooking here.
Jeff, as Joe said, it's tough to know exactly how much to take away from this one for Atlanta. With all of that said, because of the situation with the Union, have not won yet, have not looked like a functional team yet, and then they have some front office issues as well.
Yeah. Look, the other verdict that came down on Monday was that MLS is going to suspend Ernst Tanner without pay through June 1st. This dates back to reporting done by Pablo Maurer over at The Guardian, looking into misconduct and, what had been a investigation with a lot of people not talking and cooperating the first time, and then therefore they kind of ran it back, starting in the off season. And it's weirdly kind to the Union, I would say. I think that generally when you look at suspension terms, you're really looking at how long are you trying to affect them for. And so I guess what the implication is that losing their sporting director for the winter window, which has just about to conclude, that is the punishment, essentially, is that Ernst Tanner did not participate in Philadelphia Union business during the winter window heading into the 26th season, but he will be back and installed well before the World Cup and therefore also before the summer window. I'll be very interested to see if the Union bring in their own sort of penalization here, and if they either try to extend the duration of it a little bit, if they change the org chart, if they decide that they don't want to bring him back, whatever the case may be. But they now have the opportunity to bring him back and install him business as usual on June 1st. And I think that is a verdict that surprised a lot of people and just seemed shorter than most people were expecting, just given past precedent with a couple of other executives who they tried to kind of show the door quietly and, look away and some of these sorts of things. Yeah.
It seems not nearly a harsh enough hand from Major League Soccer. I don't really care to say or to go through the things that Pablo Maurer and The Guardian have gone in detailed. It's a lot of sickening stuff that has obviously no place in our society and we should be seeking to eradicate. And that is, it kind of blows my mind that MLS said, yeah, okay, one window, that's fine. You can come on back. So yeah, maybe the Union have something more here. Maybe there will be more outrage than MLS sort of anticipated in response to this decision. I think it is absurd. I think it's absolutely absurd.
It sounds to me like they basically couldn't get enough concrete stuff in terms of evidence and in terms of people willing to kind of go on record to be able to definitively prove exactly what was said, exactly how it was said, exactly what the context was, so that this ends up being okay, here's what we can prove. Do we all agree to this? And it ends up feeling like a very mixed result that ends up feeling more like a slap on the wrist than anything else. Would you all agree with that rough interpretation?
I think so, right? And part of that is just modern business in 21st century America, right? Where often if you leave an organization, if you get promoted within an organization, there's a supplemental document that's pretty much like, hey, you waived your right? And I think that these manifest in a lot of different ways, but it does make it difficult when you have these situations where, is there the courtroom scenario that this is where they would someone would press charges against Ernst Tanner? Maybe not, right? And so then short of that, you get into this murky area where people then are saying, okay, I don't know what I am allowed to divulge. How much detail then does it pay back to me? Am I going to get penalized for other breaches of contract? These sorts of things, right? Which is a shame, right? And I think just generally it's an unproductive way to design processes like these. But, that's probably a defense that MLS would take, is that we can only work with the information we have and the evidence we have, and we didn't have enough to do more. Just, again, I fully agree with Joe. The density of it, and Taylor as well. We talked about this off air. I'm not trying to make it sound like Taylor's.
And Taylor thought he should come right back in. Yeah,
a different way than Joe and I feel. But
I tried to have Ernst Tanner on this episode.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He was going to be the fourth one today. Yeah.
Right. But it really is
when I extended the invite, so I withdrew it.
Yeah, time zones are also very tricky. He has a busy ski schedule. It apparently seems like
busy ski schedule with the union's ownership. Yep.
Yeah. Go figure. What a time.
Well, I would very briefly like to just praise Vancouver once more and maybe commiserate with Jeff's favorite team of all time, Minnesota. Vancouver with a resounding win this weekend. Sebastian Berhalter, once again, looking very confident, very good. Has the penalty that I clocked it. From the time the whistle is blown, he takes 8 seconds to start his run-up, and man, was that a long 8 seconds. It felt for all the world like somebody who was not fully confident what they were doing, and instead he dispatched it pretty expertly and I think read the keeper the whole way. He has the free kick that is turned in and I think doesn't end up getting credited to him, but should have because it's a shot on frame, but whatever. Either way, Joe, I continue to kind of bang that drum that maybe he should be taking some set pieces for the U.S. if and when he is playing at the World Cup.
Big time.
I have another question for you all since we've already covered that ground. This might be ground that has been very well trod by many other people, and I feel a little bit like how Brad Pitt eats in every single movie? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm right now being the guy who's like, did you guys, I've got this crazy idea that Brad Pitt might eat in every movie. I don't know if anyone's ever talked about this before, but the Brian White goal, the opening goal or his first goal, I think I forget how many he has because there were 6 goals.
He ends up with
the first goal.
Just the 2, my lord.
Yeah. Just the 2. Is that like a definitive Brian White goal where it's sort of hanging out and then suddenly crashing the near post, somehow getting a body part to it, and somehow putting it on frame? Is that
Yep.
He just throws himself at the ball. He just comes out of nowhere. It's like, that's Brian White's music, and he's absolutely just chucking his entire body at the soccer ball at the last possible second.
But it's also like an art form in its own way. He's like Baryshnikov of junk goals, and it's excellent, right? It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch in real time.
Yeah, he remains probably solidly 5th on my USMNT depth chart, if that. But I do see what he brings you. I don't know if he brings what Mauricio Pochettino wants for the U.S., but he is a guy who will crash that box, who will make that run, who will do everything he can to get on the end of something. And with Vancouver, a team that has so many good kind of creative players around him, even without Thomas Muller starting in this game, he only plays the last 13 minutes or so. There's still just a ton of attacking creativity, a ton of attacking intent, and that is very much on display in that scoreline. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit, even if it was a pretty sizable blowout pretty quickly.
I mean, this is a serious Minnesota United team. I mean, it's not a flashy Minnesota team. I don't think it's anywhere near a top 4 Minnesota United team in the Western Conference, but it's a fine team, And Vancouver dispatched them in a fashion that we don't really see in Major League Soccer. So I think you're absolutely right to spotlight Vancouver here. They were out for blood after losing 3-0 to the Sounders, the first leg of their CCC tie. That's why Miller's not in the lineup, because Jesper Sorensen wanted to rest to give his players every possible chance to come back in that tie. Probably not going to happen, especially away from home. So that loss, I think, to Seattle really, really stings for this team because they look, once again, historically excellent. And they had a blip against Seattle, and that's a huge problem for them. The only thing I want to say about this game, other than James, who maybe we'll get to a little bit later on, but is this 20-year-old Moldovan left back whose name I've seen before but am genuinely incapable of pronouncing at this time, and I apologize for that. He is the latest data point in a trend that is very much a real thing. That Jesper Sorensen can basically put any player in this team, and they'll look really good. This dude is big. He looked effective as a left-sided center back in possession. He was fine defensively on the left side of the back line. Vancouver can toss whoever they want on the field, and that's being a bit harsh to their player development process because you're not just getting tossed on the field if you're not ready, and they are developing good players. But man, whoever steps on the field for Vancouver looks really good immediately.
I will try so that listeners have a sense. Ready?
Wait, Jeff,
Mikhail Gerasimenkov.
I think Jeff got it.
I think that's about it.
Gerasimenkov, yeah.
It's one of those you
info.
just have to kind of like pre-read it instead of sight reading
Yeah.
it, right? But like,
should have been braver.
I think we can do
That's
it.
my fault.
You got this. You'll have the courage. It's early season. You've got
Joe,
like
you
30
spent-
weeks left to go.
Joe, I thought you spent 18 months in Moldova, no?
No, it was Graham who got deported from Moldova.
Oh, yes, of
Eastern Europe
course.
doesn't agree.
Yes,
Oh
of
yeah.
You mentioned him. I will say James does get some minutes in this game and has, I think, is it a corner and then a cross or a corner and then a set piece or vice versa? But either way, you could see what he will be bringing to this team with his set piece delivery, with his kind of pinpoint accuracy, with like pinging balls into the box. I think he will end up being very good for Minnesota, if not very good defensively for Minnesota, who themselves were not very good defensively in this game. On that note, let's take a break since we've gone quite long in segment one. We'll come back and we'll talk about Oscar Pareja, who did the opposite of going long this season with Orlando. Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk Orlando, shall we? Who've had themselves a turbulent season to start this campaign, and that's putting it mildly, thus resulting in the dismissal of Oscar Pareja after 6+ seasons in charge of Orlando. They win U.S. Open Cup with him. They have some good Supporter Shield standing seasons with him. Less so the playoffs, where I don't believe they ever made a conference final with him in charge. Certainly didn't make an MLS Cup final at the very least. And now he is out the door. Joe, this feels like a situation in which fans have been kind of, I think the unrest has been growing. Fans have been calling for maybe a change in manager. And at the same time, the prevailing opinion that I have seen seems to be like, yeah, they've sacked him. That's not going to solve the problems.
Yeah, that's very much my opinion. It might solve some problems, right? I don't think Oscar Pareja was an elite tactician in Major League Soccer. I think it is possible that someone, maybe that's Martin Perlman, who's come in to be the interim coach of this team, assistant turned interim. I think it's possible that someone could do more with these pieces because there are some talented pieces in Orlando. But Pareja, by and large, outside of the last 2 months of last season, really, in the beginning of this season, he's done a lot of good things with this Orlando group, with a roster that's had a lot of good but maybe not truly great eras when he's been there. I think it's possible that someone could do better. And so this is a things can be two things situation. And I don't even think the firing is a particularly controversial decision. I think it's a fine decision. Or even if we want to call it a firing. I know they talked about Orlando as a mutual parting of ways, but I mean, I don't know. But obviously the coach no longer has
I don't think they mutually part ways if they're winning more. Yeah.
I would tend to agree with that. So I think that's one thing that can be true, is that a new coach can do better here. The other thing that can be true, and I believe this as well, is that Pareja just doesn't have a great roster right now. And I think if his players are performing better, or if he had better players, that's the other side of this, then he would still have a job. To what Jeff just said, if they were winning more games, he would have a job. And I think a huge part of winning games, regular listeners will not be surprised to hear me say this, is the quality of your players. And you look at what Orlando did over this offseason, and really last year as well, they ended up signing a pretty mediocre goalkeeper, Maxime Crepeau, and it's Crepeau that torpedoes Pareja's job. He gets fired last Tuesday, a week ago, or Wednesday, maybe a week ago, Wednesday, yeah, as we're recording now. So he gets fired a few days after that 5-0 embarrassment at the hands of NYCFC, and that had Maxime Crepeau's fingerprints all over it. Then you move up a line, and you think, okay, Robin Jansen's been a very good center back in MLS for a long time. He's 34. He's struggled with injuries. We need to start thinking about replacing him or at least partnering him with someone better than Rodrigo Schlegel or David Brecalo. That just didn't happen. And now that their idea for a replacement could work out really well, and I'm high on Iago coming in at center back, but is to go sign a U22 Brazilian or a rookie from the Super Draft and toss him into the fold. You can probably do a bit better than that when it comes to immediately elevating your floor as a team. Then you look to right back, and they've gone from Alex Freeman to Griffin Dorsey. Tough blow to lose Freeman. Really good player. That's where MLS sits in the global hierarchy. But that's a downgrade. You look in central midfield, I think you're probably mostly fine there. You look in the attack, and are we sure about the 9? Are we sure about the left winger? I'm sure not about either one of those spots. And then you have left back, which I skipped on accident, by the way. So you have real legitimate personnel questions all the way across the back line effectively, in goal, and at 2 of the 4 spots in my mind in the attack. A DP would solve some of that. I talked about last week how I'm fine with Orlando just kind of pausing on that front to try and get Griezmann. I think he's good enough to warrant you selling your season. But we have to recognize that that's kind of what's happened here, is that whoever's coaching Orlando, whether it's Pareja or somebody else, does not have a great roster. They have 2 great players in Martino Heda and Marco Pasalic. But I think we're at the stage of MLS where 2 great players does not a great team make. And Orlando felt that very, very acutely. So 2 things, again, to tie about can be true. Pareja could have done better with this group, and a new coach may. And Orlando just don't have the horses right now. In my mind, maybe I'll look stupid in a month, maybe not. I don't think they have the horses to really feel like they've given whoever the coach is a chance to go out there and actually compete for trophies this year.
It sounds to me, again, from what I've read, because I'm not going to claim to be like fluent in all things Orlando City. But it felt like to supporters that he was maybe overly defensive at the wrong moments, that he would kind of drop into a kind of bunker approach when the game was still there to be won, or maybe when it kind of ceded control to the opposition, and then his in-game adjustments weren't that strong, so it didn't put Orlando in enough of a position to go out and get results that they could have otherwise gotten. I think, Joe, that's where I go kind of cycle back to some of the points you're making about the roster build, the strength they're in. There was a good piece I was reading. During his Orlando tenure, he finished at least 7 places higher in the Supporter Shield standings than where his team finished in comparative payroll. That included an incredible challenge for the 2023 Shield on the league's lowest wage bill. So it feels like he was able to kind of create and get results, but then also would be overly defensive. And I do think maybe a new manager coming in, just being a little bit more attacking, a little bit more open, might mean they get hounded a few times, but it also might mean they get some draws that would have been losses, some wins that would have been draws, and that maybe alone like satisfies some of the supporters until that larger DP comes in. Jeff, you're nodding?
Yeah.
Does that sound
viable?
viable?
It certainly backs out when you look at like the ebbs and flows of his tenure dating back to 2020. I think you can kind of see some of those. Where was he reacting to? Because keep in mind, Orlando also made the final of the MLS's back tournament. And I know it's one of those things that like over a half decade later, we don't want to really acknowledge because, you know, it was a micro tournament that happened during the global pandemic. But at the same point, I think that was a really big moment for Pareja in his first season to say, hey, with Nani, we actually can challenge for something, right? And then they end up losing in the final to Portland despite playing at home. There were 2 different times in his tenure where they finished top 4 in the East and couldn't advance past the conference semifinal, which is essentially where you'd say chalk playing out in a bracket, and weren't able to advance beyond an opponent who was as good or better than them at that point. And then I think, you know, the hardest fall, maybe the one that he never quite did recover from, was the 2024 Eastern Conference Final when they're up against plucky upstart New York Red Bulls, much lower seed. They walk in as the 4 seed. They are absolutely the favorite, and then they still do not advance, right? And then from there, last year they finished 9th. They dropped down to the wild card. Maybe they're playing more defensively. Maybe they're trying to build through Alex Freeman a bit more. But I think that what you generally tend to see throughout his tenure, and I'll include his Dallas tenure as well, is that Oscar Pareja was among the best coaches at getting the absolute most out of the players that he had. And you know, there was I still remember, Joe, like at the start of the season, you had posted on Blue Sky, like, you know, just say a guy you're irrationally confident in or excited about watching this year, and I said Ty Spicer, and that has not aged remotely well. I picked Ty Spicer because before Ty Spicer, I had seen what Oscar Pareja had done to Kellen Acosta, to Fabian Castillo, to Mauro Diaz, to Walker Zimmerman, to Matt Hedges, to Carlos Gruezo, to Daryl Dike, to Alex Freeman, to Duncan McGuire, to Chris Mueller at certain times. And you can hear the certain varying quality of background from all of these players who generally were seen to reach or start to access the peak of their talent and their potential under Pareja. And we just didn't see that same amount of work beyond Freeman, I would say, over the last 18 months. And so when Freeman leaves, you also do have a roster of players who, yes, Ojeda and Pasalic, you do have 2 genuinely, top half attacking talent in terms of DPs and how you could utilize those positions. I think that the way they complement each other makes that something that you could absolutely build off of for the next era. But if you're trying to determine whether or not this is the right guy to help with that era, maybe it is just as simple as that. Like, the players just weren't developing at the same rates. They weren't outperforming. They're underspending as they were in the past. And now they need to find someone who's maybe, you know, has a new recipe for chicken salad that they can make with the chopped chicken that they have, right? You just don't know.
Do we have any more clarity on why Antoine Griezmann didn't want to come this window? I mean, I'm assuming it's just Atleti's still in the Champions League.
Atleti kept winning, I think.
They kept winning in the Copa del Rey.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yep.
But I haven't
Could I
talked to
sell
them,
you
so.
on? Could I sell you on a conspiracy in which his camp watched Orlando in one game and they were like, "No, this is not going to work for us." But if you fire the manager and bring in some better players, by the next window, we'll be on board. That's my conspiracy theory. Is Antoine Griezmann is already pulling strings before he's even signed.
Put a pin in this one, listeners. That would age insanely well if this comes off in the summer.
I don't think it's a bad shot, Taylor. I really
hadn't
don't.
even considered that, but I could see it.
It speaks to this idea that this is a bit harsh, and so it's also half-baked, and so I apologize for that. But I think there are some coaches in MLS that have maybe sort of been passed by the tactical landscape a little bit. I don't know if Pareja is one of those coaches. He certainly wouldn't be at the top of my list. There are others in maybe certain Cascadia climates that I would think would fit that description maybe quite well. But there are a handful in MLS maybe that I think just aren't really bringing a whole lot of tactical value, And that's only part of the job, right? What's the Nagelsmann quote? It's only like 20% tactics, 80% managing people, right? And I really do believe that. So Pareja probably was quite good at doing those things. It's hard to not be good at managing people when you last 6+ years in a job. I mean, in any job, really, I think. So I'm not at all trying to discount his skills, but I do think tactically it would not shock me if the powers that be, and maybe one of those powers is Antoine Griezmann, maybe and probably not, but the powers that be looked at this team and said, we can do, powers that could be, we can do more than this with this group. And even beyond that, of course, the meat shield is always going to be the coach, because that's how this works.
Joe, how much of the Cascadia region were you just shading?
Just the Portland one, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
No, not the other two bits. Not the other two bits.
Never sure entirely where you are on Brian Schmetzer at any given moment. Speaking of Orlando and their managerial vacancy, is there any coach who's had a lot of MLS experience, maybe with teams that don't spend a lot of money or bring in marquee names, that then has gone abroad and hasn't had a ton of success and is now kind of looking for an opportunity to come back and prove he's good?
Nope, never heard of any two people that fit that profile.
No? Wilfred Nancy says no?
I think he says no.
I think he says no. I think he doesn't want to come back to MLS yet. I don't think that you'll see Wilfred Nancy in an MLS locker room unless he's invited to come by after a game wearing a visitor's pass in 2026. I think that he wants to stay in Europe at this point.
And also,
have the crew invited him back yet?
Yeah, they're working on it. Also, I think he can just do better than the Orlando job, which is a decent job, don't get me wrong, but Nancy, I think, could have pretty much any job that he wants.
Counterpoint, he gets to wear purple Adidas, and that could rival Ben Olsen for
good point.
Vibe checks.
Vibes would be good, yeah.
That is a plus.
I don't disagree with that.
With the time we have remaining, let's talk about some other games that happened this weekend, some other debuts as well. Joe, we talked about Hamas a little bit. Should we talk Josh Sargent for a moment?
Yeah, I wanted to toss something in on Hamas. I know we had to get to break before, but I'll do one quick thing on Hamas before we get to Sargent. Hamas was amazing on the ball in his cameo in the second half. I don't think the dude sprinted one single time. I was watching to see how he moved.
Hamas.
He did not get out of 2 out of 10 speed the entire time.
I would say he brought the speed of someone who's getting honked at in a crosswalk when it's starting to flash, even though they have the time, and they kind of throw their shoulders as if they're running, but they're walking still. That is how James Rodriguez runs.
That's better than what I thought you were going to be.
I can.
I thought you were going to go the other way, Jeff, and the person who gets honked at in the crosswalk, but they have the right of way, and is not only am I not speeding up, but now I'm walking more slowly.
And I'm standing in front of your car.
Now I'm walking at slow motion.
He's not in New York. He's in Minnesota. We do the hustle shoulders. That's our.
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying. I'm sorry. I feel bad. I'm trying. Yeah. I don't know exactly which of those Hamas embodied in this game, but I just know he wasn't running very fast. It's a concern, and I think that's the reason why a better team didn't sign him. Right? I mean, he was offered around MLS, and nobody pulled the trigger until Minnesota pulled the trigger. I think he could still be useful for them. I'm not disagreeing with the point that you made, Taylor, about his distribution. I think that's spot on. And there's enough cover, we should know, in this Minnesota team that's going to run and try and all that stuff that I think this could happen and it could work out okay. But it was even jarring. Knowing what to expect, which was that he wasn't going to run very fast, and watching it, I was still a bit taken aback. Josh Sargent did run, and he tried really hard in that game against the New York Red Bulls, Red Bull New York. He almost has a goal coming immediately after arriving on the field in the second half. Almost, but not quite. There were a couple moments that Sargent sort of had opportunities here for Toronto. And this ended with Toronto crumbling. They conceded a 97th minute equalizer from Taylor's very own Eric-Maxim Choupo-Moting, the player he can never quit. The one that he wants starting over both Adrian Mehmeti and Julian Hall, I think is what Taylor said to us off air.
Whose shot proved that the Matrix is real. I just want to throw that out there. That shot, I don't understand any part of the physics of that goal from Eric-Maxim Choupo-Moting. But anyway, Joe, go ahead.
Correct. But on the Toronto side, Sargent looked active. He looked good. He looked involved. He found chances early on. I've got Sargent stock. I think Kieran Doyle put out on Blue Sky an over-under for goals that Sargent would score. I think he set it at maybe 11.5 or 12.5, something like that. I took the over. Not dramatically, because he's getting a late start on the season, and Toronto is still a work in progress. But I'm just struck by how serious of a signing he is. I don't think he's going to be worth the price tag if we're trying to strictly value transfers. They pay a ton of money for Josh Sargent. But I do think he's going to be a well above average MLS striker, very much a DP level striker in this league. And I think the early returns, the very, very early returns, were good on him. I think he will raise this team's ceiling.
I'm sort of sad that you went first, Joe, because I feel like your point would be a better one. Because my thoughts were was this a definitive Josh Sargent performance? Because for me it was. And I I don't know if that's just because I've like kind of soured on him over the years, going from like he's the next big thing and I'm extremely hyped, and I got to watch him against Bolivia for the U.S. in that one game. But in this one, like you said, almost but not quite, and I almost want to call that like the Josh Sargent story, because he comes on and almost like right away, like what a story that would have been. And we've seen that before in Major League Soccer, where the new big signing comes in and has the assist or has the goal or has the Zlatan moment in El Trafico, and we're like, that's why you get that guy. And yet with Sargent, it's like the header that he kind of wins, and then the shot that's blocked, and he has another one in the, I forget what minute, like the 82nd minute or 86th minute, where he gets in and gets a shot from a tight angle. Maybe could have taken a better first touch to get a better shot off. I don't know. That's probably overly critical because I'm seeing him through like negative glasses at that point. But it felt like, man, it would have been such a good story if he comes in and scores in that first moment, and it's like, yes, this is why they went for him. This is what he brings in. And instead, to me, it felt like almost a really exciting start. Almost. Maybe we'll see what happens, but almost is where I end up there. But I think I'm just more cynical than Joe.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I care about for strikers is that they get in good spots, and Sargent did that in this game. And beyond that, it looked to me like he was trying hard, which he hasn't always done for the U.S., and I think that maybe speaks to what he values, right? Which is fine. But I think at club level, he does try pretty hard.
Valid nerd points.
There it is.
Yeah. Out of my notes. Go ahead. Sorry,
Yep,
Joe.
that's good. No, I mean it's a fair summary, Taylor. It really is. Like I'm not swayed in the narrative sense that you are on this, but I also don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Sargent is a great player, right? I mean, I've tried to choose my language carefully with him. I think he is going to be good, but I don't know for sure. And his profile is not so blindingly amazing when you look at his scoring production and all these things across club or country that it makes you think, oh, this guy, he's a can't miss. That I don't think MLS tends to get those players that aren't named Lionel Messi. So I think it will work, and I think Toronto will be better for it. I still have some questions about exactly how this team is going to set up under Robin Fraser and how they're going to feed him the ball and what the final version of this team looks like. I just know that this team looks more serious now than it did 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And it looked more serious 2 months ago than it did 12 months ago. And if I'm a Toronto fan, I'm pretty happy about that, even if I'm frustrated that my team blew this game.
Fair. And I think that's a fair point, and I think you're right. He may end up scoring a good amount of goals and be a productive striker for Toronto. I put him, Joe, in a like lower but like similar category to like things we talk about with Malik Tillman. I don't know if you've had time to listen to Weekend Review. You've had plenty going on. But Malik Tillman had another Malik Tillman moment this weekend where he's basically played in. It's a breakaway from his own half, basically, because Bayern have so many numbers committed forward. He does end up getting pressure, so like it's not as though it's just like an uncontested goal, but it's one of those where he's in on goal 1v1, he has the defender coming, he gets the shot away, and it goes wide. And you just want for all the world for him to hit the frame or do something with it, and he just frequently seems like he doesn't do it, at least in those moments I'm paying attention. So maybe, or paying attention to that particular moment. So maybe that is like, I forget it, confirmation bias. We talked about that on Weekend Review. But like Sargent, it has a similar vibe to me of like, oh, yeah, that was the one where I wish he'd scored and he didn't. And he does get goals, don't get me wrong. That's why they spent the money for him. But I want him to just become that automatic goal scorer, or that just kind of like imperious goal scorer that we know is going to do it, and I don't have that sort of lingering doubt in my head. That's something I could control. But he could help with, Josh. He could help. That's all I'm saying.
Do it. Help the man out. Help the man out.
You know who helped themselves, Joe?
Go on.
Sporting Kansas City.
Ooh. Yes, they did. They finally won a game. I mean, I guess it's not been that long, really. It's the fourth game of the season. But they beat the LA Galaxy 2-1, and this was a Galaxy team missing both Peck and Painsel for various reasons. This was a Galaxy team playing on short rest after a CCC game. All those caveats are fair. Sporting Kansas City just look like a more serious team now than they were before, and that makes me really happy, just to use the same language from the Toronto bit. I've been impressed by some of the additions that they made. And I think in Lasse Berg Johnson, who was their new defensive midfielder signed from Malmo in Sweden, he's got 2 caps for Norway in World Cup qualifying just this past year. That kind of gives you an idea of his profile. He comes in as a non-DP, starts this game, it sort of just got into town as far as I understand it, or back to town. And he looked good. He looked competent, scored the game winner, was aggressive defensively, just immediately elevated the midfield. And Sporting Kansas City have been very, very patient, frustratingly so. And how they've gone about this, they've had some false starts when it comes to transfer signings as well. But this team doesn't look as embarrassing as I thought they were going to. And I think that sounds like damning with faint praise, and I guess it very much is. But still, that's something for this Kansas City team. They were fine in this game against the Galaxy. I think you can make an argument that they very much deserve this result. And that's not nothing for a team that still doesn't have a whole lot of players in their roster.
I think that you can't underestimate the X-Dog potential of a team that an entire media landscape has decided has already won this wooden spoon, right? Like, there was a rare sort of convergence on Sporting Kansas City, and it was deserved, to be absolutely clear, because of how few players they had coming into the season. But, like, usually it's like an open conversation of, is it going to be Montreal? Is it going to be DC? Is it going to be a team that had a bad offseason? Is it going to be a team that, held on to their coach too long, whatever? And you have like 4 different contenders. And I think that this year it was so clear that it was Kansas City that I wouldn't be surprised if there was at least some of that. I'm going to give that extra 10% every game because, like, I know that I alone am better than a wooden spoon team, right? And like, I think that when you look at the actual quality, they do have one like genuine MLS game breaker with Dejan Joveljic being a striker who can, mine goals out of very little, right? And I think that is a level of service he was used to, unfortunately, last year and still was prolific with. And yeah, he was used to better service in LA. But I think that there is also something, validating about being able to score against LA and also to be able to have this sort of performance against them where, I don't know, I think that this was one where I'm still concerned, right? Like this wasn't a result, and by no means is Joe implying this, that this is one that makes me think like, hold on a minute on Kansas City. Maybe this is a team that's going to, really punch above their weight this year. I still worry about that, but a very credible result, and credit to them for withstanding a lot of pressure from the Galaxy. Some inaccuracy issues that I think that they won't like to see as they watch the tape back, and the Galaxy fans that have made their minds up on Greg Vanney and whether or not he is the right coach for the next wave of this team, I think will have had more evidence that they want someone different in that role, right? But yeah, just in general, a good result and a much better start to the season for Kansas City than many of us expected. And we're saying this while they're 12th in the conference.
Well done to them. Well done to you both. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, finish up the weekend that was. Back soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show, everybody. I have an exciting update for you both. This was the first weekend in which I watched a full RSL game. I've watched highlights.
Ooh.
I've watched extended highlights, but you all have talked me into the hype to watch them in a full game.
Welcome.
And I was rewarded with quite a viewing experience because this is why I was saying in the intro why I enjoy Major League Soccer so much, because there is obvious quality. There are really exciting young players coming through, but there is also so much like erratic play, especially at this point of the season with teams kind of still figuring themselves out, that you'll get just chaos moments that have no business being there, and then you'll get sublime moments that remind you like, oh right, these are all like potentially world-class athletes, and then you get Brad Stuver making this way less painful for Austin than it could have been, because my goodness was he excellent in this game. He has 4 incredible saves, 2 of which happen simultaneously basically. He has a double save that he had no business making in the 57th minute, but he has like a big wrist save on Facundo Torres earlier in the game. He gets down low and covers one at the far post that he like did not seem like he was going to get to, and then he did. Could have been much worse for Austin because this was RSL being really, really good and being really confident in their approach. Even late when it was 1-1, if people didn't see, it's just backing themselves to go out and create chaos, and they do that with their counter press, especially right after possession loss, especially with Diego Luna back in, where you could tell there was just a little bit more swagger and comfort having him on the pitch, but he loses the ball, I think, trying to play in a pass. They counter press. They force, I think, Stuver into just hoofing it out of bounds, like really, really hoofing it out of bounds. They take that throw. They go from there. They create the goal. And it's a lovely goal for people who haven't seen it. It's Stein Spearings, I think, making his MLS debut.
Correct.
When the ball is played to him, his back is to goal. His first touch is the shot that leads to the goal. And I found that to be immense, that the ball is played to him. He kind of has the wherewithal to turn and let it roll across him while shielding it away from the defenders, then kind of recognizing I can let this roll forward and pick out my spot, and he does just that. Puts the laces through it and bashes that one into the back of the net for a 2-1 win for RSL, who are just, again, very fun for very different reasons, or many different reasons, from the youth to the Diego Luna to the kind of debutants breaking through to the press to the intensity with which they play to Pablo Mastroeni looking like he's going to have a heart attack at different moments in the game. just all very fun. You all were correct to hype them up as much as you have.
But I love that you're hyping up Brad Stuver at the same point, because I did have a thought as I was catching up on this game where it's just like, I'm really glad Brad Stuver ended up in Austin. Right? Like, there's always this sort of, when an expansion team, usually historically, there was a tendency for MLS expansion teams to go for, like, a long-time MLS backup and give them a longer run-out than they were used to and see if they could be, because of the quality of the American goalkeeper, right? And I think Brad Stuver, he did his time, right? Like, he was a backup in a couple of different clubs, New York City, Columbus, a couple others, I think. Pool goalkeeper, was he one of the pool goalkeeper graduates? Yeah. And so, he has been historically worked in terms of the amounts of shots that he has to face every single year with Austin, whether it was under Josh Wolf or currently under Estevez. And I still think that he's phenomenal about it. His character has also really come out, in the club culture. He is so important to that club, right? To a point where, like, I think we said it after All-Star, Joe, but still, the fact that the loudest ovations of All-Star were still reserved for Brad Stuver, like, no matter who did or didn't show up to that exhibition, was just remarkable. And I genuinely think that he would have gotten a louder ovation than Messi would have if Messi had showed up to that All-Star game. Like, just really cool to see him reward that. Now, granted, of course, we're saying this after a loss, and there was an own goal in there, but if you look at where those goals come in on like the goal mouth, like, it's the corners. He's stopping anything that isn't in, like, a direct corner, and that's really all you can ask for from a shot stopper. So just really, really good tenure already, and one of those guys that maybe you don't talk about a ton because he's not a national team player. He's an all-star when his team hosts it, often not when they don't, but really, really good stretch here for Brad Stuver in Austin.
Yeah, and I want to go back to Austin in just 1 second, but on the RSL note, this was a team that was still Taylor missing at least 4, if not 5 starters. So there's more for them to go, and they've already been quite good this season so far. I think this team, I was already pretty high on them. I think this team is going to be better than I thought, and it would not shock me whatsoever if they end up finishing 4th in the West. 3rd even feels like it could be possible. Probably not. Probably San Diego, LAFC, Vancouver. I'd say 4th. There we go. I would say 4th is very much within reach for this team.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun when Luna is back. Luna looked super chaotic coming off the bench in this game. Like, he was just trying to get the feel for the game back and maybe was pressing a little bit too much. Not defensively, but pressing, like, in all of his actions. It was a little too much. But even still, you could see the quality that he has, and Gilavogi's amazing, and Gozo dusted Jaden Nelson on the dribble, and that made me very, very happy in this game to see the U.S. have a young player who can actually eliminate players out wide with speed and technical ability. Yeah. They don't really have any of those players, as they put out on social media, and people try to tell me that Gio Reyna is somebody who does that, and I just kind of gave up on that whole thing. On the Austin side of things, I don't really understand what's happening. I mean, maybe Owen Wolf's going to fix it all. I kind of feel like Austin, like I felt about Portland when I talked about I'm very worried for this team, but I want to wait until they have, in Portland's case, it was DaCosta back and then their new midfield. So I'm not, like, ready to toss everything out in Portland. And the same goes for Austin. Like, a lot seems like it's resting on Owen Wolf's shoulders, which feels not ideal. I mean, he's a good young player, maybe a very good young player in Major League Soccer. But I don't really understand why they spent 7 figures of real human money to go sign Joseph Rosales from Minnesota United to then just immediately move him out of his best position to the other side of the field. And he's not been very good so far this year. I just don't understand what they're doing. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't see the vision, and I don't think they're going to be good even when they get Owen Wolf back. But I will wait on that and actually see. But I was on Austin Worry Watch before the season started, and I have not been dissuaded from that position.
Real human money is always going to get a chuckle out of me, Joe.
Good. Yeah, good. It's like one of those real human alcoholic beverages.
Oh, yeah. That's why I was like, is maybe Laszlo in charge of Austin?
Yes.
That's the problem. That's what we're running into. Matt Berry did a great job at the Oscars, by the way.
Yes, he did.
Joe,
yes, he did.
Also, I want to praise you for a moment, even though
you can take more than a moment if you really want to. I mean,
it'll last longer than a moment.
Okay.
Even though it ensures that we will never go viral, I appreciate, and this, I promise I am not. This is not a backhanded compliment. It is a genuine moment of, like, praise because I appreciate you. But I feel like so many people would go hyperbolic. And so many talking heads would be like, I'll tell you what, this RSL team, they got youngsters, they got Diego Luna, they got veterans coming back. They could go all the way this season. And I love, Joe, that you're like, this team is good. They've got returning players. Yeah, they could go as high as 4th. Like, it's just such a, like, I love Joe. I love Joe so much.
Wait, I'm going to drop the bomb. They could finish 4th. Not top 3. They could finish 4th. Just, maybe.
They might host 2 first-round games. They're that good.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one more from this game, because Jeff dropped one that I'm now dubbing the what's this now MLS moment, driven by Continental, of course, where somebody just says something about MLS casually that I'm like, wait, what? Let's talk about the MLS pool for a moment, because I had no idea what you were talking about.
The goalkeeper pool?
I did some Googling. Explain this concept to me, a thing that has existed since apparently at least 2003 and still exists, but I knew nothing about. Take it away, Jeff.
Every position on the field is important, and you will never be able to get a loving parent to tell their midfield child and their defense child which is their most important, right? However, you do need goalkeepers to play soccer, and there are often times where, in spite of your best efforts, at least 2 of your goalkeepers are injured. While MLS will often keep a couple of guys on standby, your substitute teachers who are salaried by the district, right? And they will get called in and say, hey, Austin is down 2 goalkeepers. They're going to be calling someone up from Next Pro. However, would you like to bring in this goalkeeper for a stretch of weeks? Right, it's not a cap casualty. You're not having to cut your 3rd string striker to be able to bring in a 4th or 5th goalkeeper to be able to make times meet. Right. And you can do it outside of transfer windows. So Brad Stuver and Tim Melia are a couple of really notable examples of players who were this substitute goalkeeper. Who are on standby. I'm trying to think. There have been a couple of others in recent years. I think Tommy Hasal might have been one as well at one point. But it's the standby who then gets shuttled around, and they will sometimes play for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams over the course of 2 seasons. And they will maybe make 1 appearance with each of those at most, but it is still a proud litany, I would say, and a fascinating sort of like only in MLS, only in a single entity salary cap structure would you even think to hatch the pool goalkeeper rule, but here we are.
It's amazing. I love MLS. I'm also starting to really, I'm not going to say love, but enjoy Nashville, Joe. Nashville, I saw somebody write this weekend that they won the battle of the yellow teams. They are officially the dominant yellow team in Major League Soccer now, though they weren't wearing yellow in this game. They do get the win, courtesy of Hani Mukhtar, but really, it's Espinoza who deserves the credit for that one in their 1-0 win over Columbus.
Take it, Jeff.
It was so good, man. Like, that was the 25,000th goal in MLS. Which sounds like one of those things where at first I saw it, I thought it was like a hyperbole. There was a lot of goal scoring on Saturday because there was.
You get a coupon at your local grocery store for that, right? I think if you're
good
come
for
down and
good for 1 bottle of Celsius or something.
Right.
Who are they sponsored by these days? Sport Armor. What was the energy drink? I've lost the joke.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter anymore, but Hani Mukhtar has chugged the whole thing at this point, even though he is mostly crediting Christian Espinoza for handing him the bottle. It was a fantastic dribble, and just like so unfortunate to see with Columbus as well, because it was something we haven't seen really since Caleb Porter was coach, which is that they lost because their structure wasn't built well enough. Right, and that's just not something you're used to seeing for players wearing those jerseys, frankly, after the last 2 years, 3 years, but. Yeah, when you look, Andy Nahar finds like just a perfect seam up the channel for Christian Espinoza that Columbus in their sort of kind of base 4-4-2 are leaving wide open for them. And so he just kind of nods the ball forward, and it's a good ball. It's executed really well, but it looks too easy in the run of time even. And then you get Christian Espinoza one-on-one with Rudy Camacho, sends him one way, sends him the other way. Camacho's on the ground, and then just kind of square it right back to Hani Mukhtar. And it was a good one of those where it's like if Nashville's going to be as good as we were saying in preseason, they do need to turn draws into wins like these, right? And just have that sort of, it was one moment where everything went right for them, and that's enough to turn 1 point into 3. And the great teams have to do that. And I think that this was a really useful piece of evidence to suggest that this Nashville team could be a great team this year, right? And not just great comparatively, not just great to scale for who they have compared to who some other teams in the Eastern Conference have. Like, this could genuinely be one of the best teams in the league this year. We've been saying it throughout the season, and I just think that these are the fine margins that you need to actually ensure to actually deserve that status when you compare it to something like last year's Seattle Sounders team, maybe, for example, which was a team that had a lot of talent but never really pulled it together in the same way.
Yeah, huge game coming up for Nashville in CONCACAF play against Miami, the second leg of a tie that's 0-0. After the first leg, they got to go to Miami for that game. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be very, very spicy. I'm high on this Nashville team. My opinions on them haven't really shifted. Espinoza is looking increasingly comfortable with each passing game. That he and Mukhtar and the big guns come off the bench in this game, and they still, even before that, really were clearly better than Columbus. is a worry for Columbus, frankly. Rydstrom's just working through some things right now, I think, trying to figure out where to use his players. He moved Rossi quite wide to the right side, which I didn't love, frankly, in this game, but there's time. But I think Columbus are on worry watch as well.
I think one last note from me, just like knowing the result of this game, having seen that headline about teams in yellow, going in, I was then like, this isn't that bad for Columbus. Like, they seemed to be the stronger team. They were creating more. They looked really good in the first half. And then I realized how many players Nashville were sitting for that CONCACAF Champions Cup second leg. And then I understood why there was more consternation about that performance. And once some of those starters came on, the difference became that much more pronounced. So.
And just to be clear, Columbus took 0 shots inside the box in the first half and a grand total of 3 shots total. Nashville didn't get a lot either, but Columbus were not creating really by any means. I did think Andre Gomes looked good in their midfield. He's giant, which, again, supports this theory. Sorry, I know we are long and we got maybe one more thing to talk about. Supports this theory that I have that we've kind of over-indexed as an American soccer culture on technical ability because for the longest time it was all we have is grit and heart and we don't have any technicians. And there still needs to be better and more technical ability. Don't get me wrong. That's why Adrian Mamedi looks like the truth because he has that. But you know what Adrian Mamedi has? He also has a frame on the guy. You know what Xavier Gozo has? He's got a frame, and he can beat you with his speed and his strength. And you know what the best players on the planet can do? They can do the technical stuff, but they also have the physical ability. Like, you don't have one or the other, really, in most cases. I mean, maybe in very, very specialized instances, but by and large, you don't have that. And so Gomes comes in, and he looks technically very capable in this Columbus midfield and drop into the back line at times. But he's also a giant. Like, he just dwarfs so many other people on the field. At his age, maybe the physicality matters a lot less. But I just continue to think about that when it comes to youth development in this country. And the Club World Cup kind of sparked this for me. Last summer, so something did come out of it. If good did come out of it, maybe this is good or isn't. But I just think that is a huge gap in like how we're identifying the players that matter and developing players and all those things. You do need the athleticism too, and Gomes at least has the frame and the strength to bring something to the Columbus midfield.
You're correct. They didn't have a shot from inside the box, Joe. But Max Arfston did hit the post and created his own shot. He also helped kind of create a goal that was then disallowed, but I enjoyed Max Arfston in this one. He fun. He good. One more game we should mention. Jeff, talk to me about the Sounders.
Yeah, they're pulling it together in a way that they weren't last year and overcoming some initial early season hardships.
Almost like they're going to be the best team in the West, and I will once again
they might be good enough to make the top 5 in the West. I'm going to go ahead and
Whoa, Jeff, whoa. If you're not careful, we're going to go viral with that sort of take.
Stick my neck here, see what happens. Hate me, Twitter. No, I mean, like, look, it was a really, really good week for them. Yes, they win at San Jose, but they also, midweek against Vancouver, that was an excellent game in the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And we were able to win 3-0 in Vancouver and able to do it in a way where, like, they saw what Vancouver's doing. Vancouver starts really well in that game, and I know we don't talk about CCC too much in this one, but, like, I think that was, like, a really instructive sort of game in terms of how the top of the Western Conference is going to be won. And when you look at, recognizing what Vancouver is trying to do, they were really, aggressive about pushing the emphasis on the ball, whatever, and keep the field short so that they could, regain possession or catch them offsides, whatever. Well, Seattle was really clever about how they were able to work through that structure and how we're able to get into transition moments, how they're able to get Paul Rothrock, running into space, or how they work their overlaps. And I just think that there was also an interesting decision to have Alex Roldan at center back, which I'm going to be watching a lot closer, because one of my big issues with the Seattle side has been their mobility in defense and their ability to backtrack in these moments that happen every single game in transition phases. And so often throughout 2024 and especially 2025, Seattle was just caught flat-footed, weren't able to keep stride, and we're shipping in clumsy goals in transition phases, and then also not really defending set pieces well enough either. And it's very difficult to win. Well, if Alex Roldan is shifting into being that center back in a back four, he does have the legs for that. And he did pretty well with the physicality of Brian White, which I think is a good test. But just generally, they sold Obed Vargas. Their midfield still looks really good, whether it's Snyder Brunel or Hassani Dotson in there with Christian Roldan. Roldan is just insanely important to that team. And so long as he's going, this team should keep going too.
Love it.
Joe, where would you like to put Paul Rothrock on your USMNT depth chart?
Off of it, but it was a nice goal that he scored. I mean, Bruce and I talked post game about how they talked about how if Rothrock was going to get a goal, it was going to come from that sort of vertical run that he has. I think the pass from Ferreira deserves more love than the movement from Rothrock, but he's a good player, and it's helpful that the Sounders have him in this team. Their depth continues to be impressive. Andrew Thomas has gone from backup to starter. He's a good testament of that depth. Without him, they lose this game 3-1 to San Jose. I mean, the Quakes were quite good, but Seattle was gritty enough, and they got enough goalkeeping, and they got enough from their depth players, Antonio Lopez, goal line clearance. Like there was enough, just enough, from the Sounders in this game, and that's sort of their mantra in early stages of the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all on the same page, and I said this last week. I'm not worried about Seattle. I think they're going to be a very, very good team again this year, and that's exactly what they look like.
Well, there you have it. Gentlemen, lovely work by you all. We've gone long, but that's to be expected when there are 9 billion games to discuss in Major League Soccer. Jeff Ruder, you discussed about half of those 9 billion games quite expertly. Well done to you, sir.
Thank you, and I hope that's discussed with an SED and not discussed with a
Not only
it's the G-list version, I think, Jeff. It's the G-list version.
Got it.
Not only is it the nicer one, but it moved you up. Like, I'm going to put you at, like, that was like a 90%. That puts you, 3 times higher than Phil Neville? Like, you're doing great, man. You're doing great.
I'm going to retire soon. Just you wait.
I'm good at math. I'm pretty sure I know things. Joe Lowry, thank you for being our resident soccer nerd who I mock, but also very much appreciate for his soccer nerddom because it keeps him objective, it keeps him from hyperbole, it keeps him rational, and thus it keeps us all rational.
Thanks, Taylor.
And the heart. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. I always enjoy hosting these shows. I'm really enjoying Major League Soccer. Long may it continue, and it will. I hope I have this same level of enthusiasm come May or thereabouts. We'll see. Until then, thanks again for listening, as I already said. Talk to you very soon.